You ever notice how some people move through life quietly apologizing for existing? They shrink when they speak, trying to take up less space than they deserve. And if you listen closely, not just to their words, but to the pauses between them, you can hear it. That small, invisible echo of a childhood that didn't feel like love. See, childhood neglect isn't always about overt trauma or cruelty. Sometimes it's silence. A mother who was too busy, a father who was too tired, a home that was emotionally cold, even if it was physically safe. You grow up in that kind of world, and the lesson seeps in slowly. I guess I'm not worth the warmth. What's wild is how long that message stays. It rewires your entire nervous system for survival, creating a blueprint that dictates your adult relationships. But here's the crucial part. That blueprint can be rewritten. Today, we'll understand the architecture of that neglect, how it builds a defensive self, and the path to creating the safety you deserved all along. Emotional neglect is fundamentally about unmet developmental needs. It's not what happened, but what failed to happen. The consistent emotional attunement, the eye contact, the soothing affection a child's brain requires for healthy development, its absence creates a void. And a child's mind, wired for survival above all else, must adapt. The natural instinct to seek connection shifts to the more practical task of managing absence. The child learns that reaching out is met with silence, so they stop reaching. This is where hypervigilance begins, an early warning system constantly scanning for emotional danger, for any sign of withdrawal or disappointment. This adaptation forces a premature self-sufficiency. The child becomes their own caretaker, their own problem solver. They take pride in being low maintenance. But this isn't freedom, it's armor. It's a necessary protection for the child inside who once reached out and got nothing back. The internalized conclusion is both devastating and logical. I must be the reason warmth is withheld. It's safer for a child to believe they are flawed than to face the unbearable truth that the love they need simply isn't available. This childhood adaptation hardens into an adult blueprint. You carry the paradox of an independence that masks a deep vulnerability. You appear fiercely self-reliant, but that self-reliance is a fortress built around a profound fear of needing anyone. The very strategies that helped you survive childhood become the walls of your prison in adulthood. This shows up most clearly in your relationship patterns. You might find yourself testing intimacy, unconsciously creating scenarios to confirm your deepest fear that you will be abandoned. You might sabotage good relationships because the stability feels unfamiliar and therefore unsafe. Or you might simply avoid intimacy altogether, preferring the predictable pain of isolation to the terrifying uncertainty of connection. Your brain, imprinted with chronic alertness, operates in a world it perceives as unsafe, even when it's objectively secure. It learns to anticipate rejection before it ever happens, building defenses proactively. This isn't paranoia, it's a neurological imprint. Your brain developed under the constant low-grade stress of emotional absence, and it now expects that absence as the default state of the world. This blueprint also manifests in a relentless pursuit of belonging through external validation. You learn that love must be earned, so you perform for it. You chase approval like it's oxygen, succeeding, pleasing, impressing. But deep down, the goal isn't success, it's belonging. You might tell yourself you're ambitious, but sometimes that drive is a disguised ache. You're not trying to reach the top, you're trying to be enough. This exhausting cycle forces you to constantly perform a version of yourself you believe is worthy of love, all while hiding the part of you that feels fundamentally unworthy. The radar for disconnection you developed as a child remains on high alert. A friend takes a little longer to reply to a text, and your nervous system interprets it as abandonment. Someone uses a neutral tone, and you sense anger. This isn't drama, it's programming. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. The physiological cost is immense. A nervous system constantly braced for a threat that never quite arrives, leaving you perpetually exhausted. And perhaps the most telling sign is that calm feels unfamiliar, even unsettling. When your childhood was wired for emotional unpredictability, peace can feel like emptiness. Your brain might even try to stir up drama just to return to what feels normal. These are the prison walls, patterns of thinking, feeling, and relating that were once necessary for survival but now prevent you from experiencing secure connection and peace. This hypervigilance becomes your body's primary language. You become fluent in the subtlest cues, a micro-expression, a slight shift in tone, a pause that lasts a fraction of a second too long. Your nervous system, trained in an environment of emotional scarcity, operates as a sophisticated radar for disconnection. It's constantly scanning, interpreting, and predicting. The problem is that this radar, designed for a childhood where love was unpredictable, remains calibrated to detect threat long after the immediate danger has passed. So you interpret neutral events as confirmation of your deepest fears. A simple "okay" in a text message isn't just an acknowledgement. It's evidence of anger or disappointment. A partner needing a quiet evening to themselves isn't a healthy boundary. It's the first step toward abandonment. Your brain fills the silence with the narrative it knows best. You are the reason for the distance. This isn't a conscious choice. It's an autonomic response, a physiological reaction rooted in the survival mechanisms of a child who learned that emotional absence was the precursor to being left entirely alone. The physiological cost of this constant threat assessment is immense. Your body is perpetually braced, your nervous system stuck in a state of chronic low-grade alarm. This isn't just psychological, it's a biological reality. The stress hormones that were meant for short-term survival become a constant background hum, leading to exhaustion, difficulty resting, and a profound sense of being on edge even in safe environments. This is why calm can feel so unsettling. When your entire life has been wired for emotional unpredictability, stillness feels like a vacuum. Your brain, conditioned to equate stability with the calm before a storm, might even unconsciously create drama or conflict, just to return to the familiar, high-alert state that it mistakes for normal. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. While you might intellectually understand that you're safe as an adult, your nervous system holds the implicit memory of that early neglect. It's a somatic imprint, a feeling in your bones that you are essentially alone. This is the legacy of the radar, a body that is always working, always scanning, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, ensuring you never fully let your guard down enough to experience genuine, restful connection. Beneath this radar of disconnection lies the core wound, the foundational belief formed in that silent childhood. I am not worth the warmth. This isn't a simple thought. It's a conclusion your younger self drew from the evidence available. When your natural need for connection went consistently unmet, your mind, in its desperate need to make sense of the world, arrived at the most logical explanation from a child's perspective. The problem must be me. I must be the reason love is withheld. This belief becomes the central organizing principle of your adult life, shaping every choice and coloring every self-perception. This core wound manifests as the exhausting cycle of performing for validation. You learn that love is not a state of being, but a reward for achievement. It becomes something to earn. So you perform, you succeed, you please, you impress. You become the reliable one, the high achiever, the person who never asks for anything. But the goal isn't the success itself. It's the belonging you hope it will buy you. You're not trying to reach the top. You're trying to be enough to warrant a place at the table. This creates a fundamental confusion between being needed and being loved. You might find yourself in relationships where your value is tied to your utility, what you can do for others, mistaking that functionality for genuine affection. The emptiness you feel, the quiet ache, is often misinterpreted as proof of your unworthiness. But here's the crucial reframe: that emptiness is not evidence that you are unlovable. It is evidence of your profound capacity for connection. It is the echo of a fundamental human need that went unmet. The ache itself is a reminder of what you deserve, not a confirmation that you don't. Your heart was wired for love, and something essential was missing. This distinction is everything. It shifts the focus from what is wrong with me to what was missing for me. This begins to externalize the wound, allowing you to see that the absence of love was a failure of your environment, not a reflection of your inherent value. This belief that love must be earned forces you to wear a calm face even when you're falling apart inside. You learn to hide the need for the love you don't believe you can have. You become an expert at minimizing your pain, saying it's fine when it's not, because expressing need feels too risky. It reinforces the childhood fear that your authentic self, with its vulnerabilities and needs, is too much and would inevitably lead to rejection. The core wound, therefore, creates a life lived in pursuit of an external certificate of worth, a constant performance that leaves you feeling emptier than when you began, because the validation you receive is for the performance, not for your true self. The good news is that your nervous system, while deeply patterned, is not permanently fixed. Neuroscience reveals the principle of neuroplasticity, the brain's enduring capacity to form new neural pathways throughout your life. This isn't about erasing the past, but about slowly, consciously teaching your body and mind a new language of safety. The old blueprint was formed through repeated experiences of absence. The new one is built through consistent, small moments of reliable connection. This rewiring begins with seemingly insignificant interactions. It starts when you practice receiving a compliment without immediately deflecting or feeling guilty. It's in the moment you allow someone to do a small kindness for you without assuming you now owe them something in return. It's learning to tolerate a silence in a conversation without your brain interpreting it as a prelude to rejection. These are the building blocks. Each time you successfully navigate one of these moments without triggering the old alarm system, you send a new message to your nervous system. This is safe. This connection is not a threat. The concept central to this process is earned security, a well-documented finding in attachment research. It means that even if you did not develop a secure attachment in childhood, you can still cultivate it as an adult. This security is earned through awareness, practice, and the deliberate cultivation of relationships, including the relationship with yourself, that are characterized by consistency, empathy, and emotional responsiveness. It's the psychological work of providing for yourself and allowing others to provide, the attunement that was missing early on. The goal is not to become a different person, but to gradually convince the most ancient, survival-oriented parts of your brain that the world is no longer the emotionally dangerous place it once was. This is a slow, often uncomfortable process. Of course, it feels strange. To a system wired for threat, safety can initially feel like vulnerability, like exposure. But with repetition, the unfamiliar sensation of calm begins to register not as emptiness, but as peace. This journey inevitably leads you to the most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. Healing from neglect is fundamentally an act of reparenting. It's about becoming the emotionally present adult for the younger parts of you that still operate from that place of absence. This begins with a profound shift from self-criticism to compassionate observation. Instead of berating yourself for being too sensitive or needy, you start to notice when your old survival habits activate. You observe the impulse to people-please, the anxiety that flares up with silence, the urge to sabotage a good thing, not as character flaws, but as echoes of a brilliant child who figured out how to survive. The practice is one of consistent self-attunement. It's learning to speak to your younger self with the understanding and patience that was missing. This might look like looking at an old photograph and quietly acknowledging you didn't deserve that silence. You deserve to be seen. It's about offering yourself the very things you craved: patience, understanding, and the safety to have needs. When you feel the urge to apologize for taking up space, you gently challenge it. When you minimize your pain, you give yourself permission to acknowledge that it's real. This is how you rewrite the original story, not through forceful affirmation, but through countless small choices to meet yourself with kindness instead of harshness. As you practice this, something remarkable happens. The hypervigilance that once served as your primary defense mechanism begins to soften. You start to recognize when it's activating unnecessarily, when it's responding to a ghost from the past, rather than a genuine threat in the present. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual replacement of one operating system with another. Safety slowly begins to take the place of constant alertness. You build self-trust by proving to yourself over and over that you will not abandon your own emotional experience. You become a reliable source of comfort for yourself. This is the essence of reparenting, providing the consistent emotional presence that allows the wounded inner child to finally feel secure enough to rest, enabling you to step more fully into your life as an adult, no longer governed by the fears of the past. This internal shift creates a quiet revolution in how you move through the world. You stop chasing proof of your worth through external validation because you begin to carry that validation within you. The exhausting performance for love gradually ceases. You no longer need to be the most successful, the most helpful, or the most low maintenance to feel you have a right to exist. Your worth becomes a settled fact, not a negotiable point. This allows you to start valuing peace over performance, stillness over the drama that once felt familiar. The chaos you might have mistaken for passion or intensity reveals itself as merely the echo of an unsettled nervous system. You begin to prefer the quiet confidence that comes from no longer having to prove anything to anyone. This revolution brings a profound realization. Love is not something you get from others, but something that flows through you when you stop blocking it. The walls you built to keep pain out also kept love from flowing freely within you. As you dismantle these defenses, not through force, but through the gradual cultivation of internal safety, You discover a capacity for love that was always there, buried under layers of protection. This shifts your entire orientation. You begin to understand that the people who couldn't love you properly were themselves operating from their own unloved patterns. This isn't about excusing their behavior, but about seeing it with clarity, which allows forgiveness to become an act of personal freedom rather than absolution for others. You stop waiting for an apology that may never come and give yourself closure by deciding your worth is no longer up for debate. The final stage of this revolution is the quiet superpower that emerges from understanding absence so deeply. Those who grew up without consistent warmth often develop an extraordinary capacity for empathy and a sacred appreciation for genuine connection. When you finally find or create safety, you treat it with a reverence that others might take for granted. You love harder because you know what it's like to go without. You listen longer because you remember what it felt like to be unheard. You hold space wider because you understand the profound impact of a welcoming presence. This isn't a wound to be ashamed of. It's a depth of understanding that becomes your greatest strength. The very sensitivity that was once a liability, your radar for disconnection, transforms into an asset for creating profound and authentic bonds. That quiet ache for connection you carry is not evidence of your brokenness. It is the most definitive proof of your humanity. It means your heart still remembers what it was made for. You are wired for belonging. And the fact that you can still feel that longing, even after everything, means nothing truly took that capacity away from you. You are not doomed by your past. You are simply carrying a map that needs updating. The child inside you never stopped hoping that one day someone would see them fully and not turn away. The most profound healing begins when you realize that person can and must be you. You carry within you the capacity to create the safety you deserved all along. The invitation is to become the person who finally sees your own worth clearly.